I'm Nadja Swart for BizNews, and I'm joined by Adam Craker, the CEO of IQbusiness, and Nadine Rix, the company's head of governance, risk, and compliance. So 2 weeks ago, IQbusiness released a report with quite scary revelations regarding the mental health conditions and disorders with which people are returning to the office. So before we get into the findings of the report, can you just tell me about your backgrounds? Adam, let's start with you.
Sure, Nadja. I'm, as you say, the chief executive of IQbusiness. We're the country's largest homegrown management and technology consulting firm based in Johannesburg, with a team of just over 1,000 spread across South Africa and into sub-Saharan Africa. You'll tell from my accent that I'm not originally from South Africa, but I've been in South Africa now for 24 years. And I guess the biggest test is to ask me the question, which rugby team do I support? And after 24 years, it has to be the Springboks.
Well, there we go. Okay. Many people will be very happy to hear that. And Nadine?
Hi, Nadja. So I'm the head of governance, risk, and compliance in IQbusiness. I joined them in January. I'm a CA by qualification. I spent about 15 years living and working in West Africa before returning to my home country. As you can tell from my accent, I'm definitely homegrown, as Afrikaans as they get, after all these years, still not able to get rid of the Dutchy accent. So I've been working in this space. I love risk work. I love governance and the space in which we operate. I think there's a lot that we can do in South Africa in that space. And IQbusiness luckily has given me the freedom to kind of explore different initiatives that we take into that world. So that's my background.
Okay, so you're the report originator. Can you just briefly unpack the findings of the report?
So I'm going to give just a little bit of context in terms of where it comes from. So being in the risk world, typically when we look at HR risk, it's more or less process and procedurally driven. We look at things like how do companies onboard, how do they do vetting, how do they ensure, key man dependencies and things like that. And what we realized in January, one of my team members actually came to me to say, well, we think HR risk is something different because the employees that left the workforce 18 months ago are going to be very different from the people who start walking through the proverbial doors come towards the end of the year. And we started thinking about how can we as risk or the risk fraternity address this? And we started thinking, is there a way that we can kind of give organizations a tool by which they can measure the amount of trauma that people have been through? This in no way means that if you've suffered these events, that you've been through a traumatic experience, that's dependent on your own personal resilience, but just to give organizations an idea of this is what people have been through so that they can kind of roll out initiatives or controls, what we look at, to address these things. Instead of trying to apply a blanket approach and hope that we address everybody, how can we customize the ways in which we deal with the workforce that is coming back, that is suffering from depression, anxiety, they've been through financial strain. A lot of them have been through divorce, relationship challenges, and things like that. So that's where it kind of came from. We then went around to different clients to ask if they would pilot this with us. It's a bit uncharted waters. A lot of organizations don't want to hear the answer and they don't want to know what people have been through. They kind of just want to keep their eyes closed. And we were lucky enough to do a couple of pilot studies, and it very much confirmed what we've been thinking in terms of what employees are looking like coming back. So also please note that this is just for office-based employees. We are yet to go into the realm of, kind of like the tourism and travel industry, blue collar workers. We haven't gone there yet, but we needed the research first to kind of just substantiate that we were onto something and that we can actually go to organizations to say, well, this is what's actually going on. So how can we help you to address, majority of the challenges that your workforce is going through, to make it tailor-made and custom-made so that they can actually raise some of these issues that are oftentimes not addressed in the workplace.
It's reasonably new for the corporate sector to show concern to this extent about the well-being of their employees. So apart from the economic cost of these disorders coming back into the workplace, what is the motivation behind addressing this?
I think essentially the clients that we are looking for are those that essentially put people first. There are, unfortunately, as you mentioned, few of them in the workplace, but we're looking for, like in IQbusiness, our values is grow people first. So grow people, grow business, grow Africa. And we believe that through taking care of your people, they essentially become then those that drive your customer base and those that drive your business. So if you have an organization that you follow and that you believe in what they believe in, you can get a loyal following that will work with you through that diversity that they are facing. So that was the premise of it. And I think for us, it became a reality that if corporate South Africa doesn't start addressing it, who is going to? Because if I don't feel safe at my workplace where I spend majority of my time to discuss the things that I've gone through and to feel supported and to feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable, where do I go to? What do I do? Most individuals don't know what routes to follow and where to go. So that was kind of the premise, to say the place where you spend most of your time and energy should really be taking care of your overall well-being, not just your mental well-being, but other areas as well. And we hope that that resonates with organizations. Just quickly coming back to the economical cost, we're also currently doing research to say, well, what is the cost of training and recruiting new all the time when we've had these massive exodus of people out of corporate South Africa? So what is actually that cost versus taking care of them and taking them on board and investing in their overall well-being?
And what have you found so far?
It's very initial stages. Indicators for now seem that at the end of the day, it's going to be the longer term value that people have to invest in. So it's not something where you're going to do a program in 6 months and immediately see the return on investment. It's going to be a longer term investment that people have to go into. And again, I think as much as we'd like to believe that we want to put people first, I find that the conversation goes a lot easier if you can attach a financial component to it. Oftentimes that's what will get people on board. So that's why that end of the research is now coming into the fore as well.
And so far, how receptive have companies been to adopting this approach?
Yeah. So far, I must say, we've been very selective in terms of the clients that we approach with it. And overall, most of them have been very receptive. Some that we've gone into have got very well-defined wellness programs. So we meet with the wellness people in those organizations. And 90% of them come back to say, wow, we've really missed the boat. We thought we were doing well. We thought we'd covered everything. But we realize now why we only have a 12 to 15% uptake in our wellness programs. So overall, overwhelmingly, the response has been positive. I think when it comes to the larger corporates, we just need one or two to buy into it and to start seeing the results for this to kind of like roll out. We've also presented at various conferences in the risk fraternity, because this is essentially where it was born. And overwhelmingly, the response has been, yes, this is the kind of stuff that we should be looking at and not just process and procedural type of work.
And Adam, as the CEO of a company with a staff of, like you said, over 1,000 people, how involved on a practical level can you actually get with these things?
We have to be involved, Nadia. When we think of those 1,000 IQers in our business, our average age is around 32 years old. So we're a very youthful organization. And when we've looked at the profile of our team, on average, every employee has around 8 dependents. So that's their immediate family, but they also have, of course, their own employees, housekeepers, and others that are involved and are dependent on them. That means that for everyone, we've got 8,000 dependents that are involved in our business in some shape or form, either directly or indirectly. And we have a motto at IQbusiness that we employ the whole person. We don't just employ the person that we see coming into the work environment. And as Nadine says, the approach and the philosophy, the value system that we have in place that really focuses on ensuring that our IQers are going to be able to do the job that they need to do for our clients in turn. So our wellness program, our counseling process really has to be part of that, whilst also recognizing that we are running a business. This is a for-profit enterprise, but there is a line that we have to cross from time to time in terms of our social obligation and the role that we play with our employees.
The issue of mental health, it's sensitive, and like you said, a blanket approach doesn't work. What challenges do you foresee that you may eventually have to deal with regarding the extent to which you will hold yourself responsible for the well-being of your employees?
Well, Nadia, I think it's amazing to some extent that we're having a conversation with BizNews about mental health as a business. If we rewind the clock a couple of years, we don't have to go very far. Mental health discussions were not taking place in a business environment. Mental health has always been perhaps something that has been feared or shunned or not appreciated or reflected on. And increasingly, we see the pressure points and the issues coming into focus around stress, anxiety, depression. And the last 18 months in particular, I mean, let's appreciate that today, I think today is day 567 of lockdown. We went into lockdown for 21 days originally, and we've been in it now for 567 days. That has an enormous pressure point on any human being. We've gone through the most significant economic contraction that the world has ever seen. In South Africa, we're experiencing 10 years of economic crisis that has gradually been building. We've had in July the civil unrest period, which was massively stressful for individuals in the South African environment. All of these factors are creating issues that are surfacing in the form of mental health issues. And it's far more common than I think we've ever appreciated or acknowledged, but becoming even more prevalent in society and in the world today. It's really difficult to deal with, hence the reason why we've enlisted support from organizations like Life Healthcare, who have an organization called Careways, who have experts and counselors that are able to engage with our team on a confidential basis. And it's also why we're seeking to train our leaders and managers in how to spot issues before they surface, how to address those issues and tackle those. And the research that Nadine has led is all part of that proactive stance in terms of really surfacing the issues and being able to put in place measures that will enable organizations to address that before they see the consequences of that. From my perspective, we've always taken a view that we would innovate in our employee value proposition and that it's not a static situation. We must continually evolve that. And the important dimensions that we're talking now, as we are leveraging the employee trauma tool into how we develop and enhance our employee value proposition, is something that I think is very well received by our IQers and our broader IQbusiness family. But there's, I guess what I find is that as we move forward, it almost becomes expected that that we must roll out the next wave, the next change. We must deal with the next set of issues that we face. For example, at the moment, we're obviously dealing with the issues of vaccination, and we've taken a position and a stance as an organization like others, like Discovery Health, that we must mandate vaccination in our organization. And that brings in a whole new set of requirements and steps and processes and implementation that we've never done before, but we have to embrace and move forward as we care for our employees.
So just to close off with the tools that you are using and assisting other companies to implement in their own businesses, what are the practical elements of these things? Specifically, taking into account the different nature and implications of the disorders that have come about as a result of the last 18 months.
Nadine, would you like to?
I can take that one. Thank you. I think some of the practicalities that we've got to be very mindful of is, where do we pitch it? I think we had long discussions in terms of where does this responsibility lie in an organization. I think the answer essentially is with Exco. If this is not something that's driven from the top, it's going to bomb out. So for us, it's very important that Exco is aligned with our thinking around this. Practically, there's also the customization of it. So if we give them the toolkit and they say, I don't like this question, but oh, can you incorporate that? We're very flexible and we work with them to make sure that we address all of the issues that they've got. And I think we've also then got to be very careful in terms of how we report on these things. A lot of individuals don't necessarily want to see departmental reporting or individual reporting. They want to see holistic reporting. And coming back to what you asked earlier on, what has been the result of some of this, is just the mere fact, if you can start a conversation with somebody in a department, let's say of 50 people, and put these facts on the table, and all of a sudden they see the statistics, people are much easier. They tend to open up a lot easier when they feel like, oh, hang on, I'm not the only one going through this. So just the mere fact that the work has been done and the research is there, it opens up that channel of communication. So I think practically speaking, it's the positioning of it. And then also being very open and honest about the controls that have been put in place. I think a lot of organizations, say, oh, we've got this wellness program or we've got flexible benefits and these things. It's actually going and testing this control that you've put in place. Is it actually addressing the risk that we've identified? So is it adequate in its design, and is it effectively working? So if the uptake is low, there's something wrong with that, and giving us the leeway to then go and investigate why is that, and working with practical solutions to solve it. So it's very much a collaborative effort. And it's very much a space where we have to be vulnerable, and organizations have to be vulnerable with us in terms of what is working and what is not working, to make sure that this is just not, it's not lip service that we're paying. It's not just another wellness day. It's something that can fundamentally change and enhance your employee resilience moving forward.